Well, all right, all right, all right. Man, what a happy day this is for me and my co-host, Julie Christine. We are here. We're talking on Entertainment Sports Network. We're going to talk some mental health. Last time we brought malware and we brought a little bit of Jay painting fingernails and things of that nature. Today, I want to focus specifically on mental health and all of the facets and areas that it encompasses. And so, yeah, Christine, Julie, what are you thinking? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm outside. One of the, things to help with that type of topic, going outside, nature walk. So it's a beautiful day. So I figured it's appropriate for this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like a nice, beautiful day out there. And I know you're out there in Tennessee. No, Maryland. I'm sorry, Maryland. So
Maryland.
So what y'all got, like about 40 degrees? I'm sitting at about 50 right now out here in Houston.
Oh, no, it's just nice out. I don't know the degree.
Jeez, you don't know your temperature. You don't know if it's cold or not.
But yeah,
That's
it's really
okay.
nice
Don't worry
today.
about
So
it.
that's why
All right. Well, let's
I just
start
go
it
by
off.
it's like, yeah.
All right, well, let's start it off. I will tell you, I am a kind of guy that I do suffer from not bipolar, OCD. Like I'm a very OCD driven guy. I do have ADHD. Even though back in the 70s, Julie, and even into the 80s, ADHD was not something that was really known about. We certainly didn't test for it. We just threw these kids into the school system and said, do the best you can, because we don't know. The guy just is hyper. He's all over the place. He can't focus. He can't read, whatever. So there's a lot of things back in my day that, nowadays we're more focused or at least hyper focused on these things. But back in the 70s and 80s, it was a very hush hush thing. We didn't talk about it, But I'm the kind of guy that I had OCD, ADHD, and then after my military, or I should say during my military career, coming out of the military, I was diagnosed with PTSD. Had no idea what PTSD was. They just sent me down to behavioral health because all kinds of crazy things were happening. The lady talked to me. They gave me this hour-long evaluation that was question-based. About a day or two later, I got the diagnosis of PTSD, and I asked the lady, I said, I don't even know what PTSD is. Can you break it down? What does it stand for? What is it? And of course, then they did all that, and then that opened up a whole another spectrum of life. So that's just a little snapshot of me. And I will tell you, Julie, the biggest thing was back in those days, it was a stigma, especially in the military. It was a stigma. You didn't talk about it. They didn't want to know about it. You didn't even write stuff down. It was kind of like, if you wanted to go to behavioral health, that was almost a career killer.
Weakness.
Well, you can say weakness, but it was a career killer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like they didn't want to know about it, And it would take something very severe to happen to you for you to go to mental health. And usually when that was happening, that means you're on your way out of the Army, typically speaking.
Oh, gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? I will tell you that, and no names, no nothing, just on the anonymous scale, there were people that I knew in the Army that were suicidal or had committed suicide. And that was even looked at as a sign of weakness. It was almost even in some cases made fun of. That how could this kid take his life? How could he be so weak? How could he be so this? How could he be so that? Yeah, that was the mentality back in the 80s and 90s and even almost into the 2000s. Now it has gotten significantly better in the Army and the Navy and the Air Force and other branches of service. But I got to still imagine there's still, in some small pockets, it is frowned upon. I don't know in your entertainment business or in your life, if you come across these things, and if so, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that.
Well, again, I think by having that conversation, or at least bringing it up, you're strong, not weak. So I feel like by going against your fear about bringing up that conversation, I feel like that's a strength, not a weakness. When it comes to the news aura, again with the pandemic, I saw how America was transitioning from how adjusting it like the whole mask debate, how people were like, I'm not going to wear a mask. And like people were creating like their own mask. And then people were like protesting about it. And then people with the haircuts, like people were like making their own haircuts. So it was interesting to see how society was going about adjusting to the pandemic. But the problem is that we don't talk about the postpartum about the pandemic, how like people are still in isolation mode. Like I remember when I first started and I knew the pandemic was about to happen, I was actually in Washington, D.C. and I was wearing gloves and a mask, and everyone was looking at me super weird, being like, what are you doing? And I'm like, there's a pandemic about to happen. Like, but I was the odd man out. But I was like, F it, safety first. But it was interesting to see how that was. But during the news coverage, it was a hard topic because we were in sensory overload. I could not turn off the news because I had to get every information every day. I had to stay up to date. And so I was like literally like in a ball, like crying because I had to get like the death rate per day. So it was information overload. But the news was like, they were very careful about it. I mean, like they're more adjusting to the topic. But again, like it's a really tough news story that was in the U.S. like comes down to the first pandemic in U.S. history. So it was interesting to cover for sure because again, like the whole American society were like, what do we do? Like this is due to us. So it was interesting to see that like psychological development.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, and you know, and that's the thing, right? Even, like, you know, even people in my family, like my granny had OCD, but we didn't talk about it. People on my other sides of my family had ADHD. We didn't really talk about. Matter of fact, we got in trouble a lot because we were so hyper, and nobody knew how to deal with the hyperness. So we just got punished for something that, you know, we didn't have the medications to help you control certain things, right? We didn't have that back then. So it was very frustrating, you know, for me growing up, and I'm sure for my relatives growing up with these types of things, but yet there's no help for it, you know. So what are you supposed to do about it? So then, of course, those kinds of things lead to other things, right? Depression, you know, you name it, right? Anxiety, you know, anxiety of getting in trouble because, you know, this, that, or the other. You know, your grades start to slip because you're not able to focus right, or this, you know, there or the other. So, you know, we've really come, like I said, I don't want to say we have come a long, super way in dealing with these kinds of things, you know. And then you look at all the people that came up, like I had friends of mine that came up with this kinds of issues, and it wasn't documented in their Army records because, again, it was hush, hush, we don't talk about it. And so then they try to go to the VA, they try to get help for that, but it's not in your records. So how do we get you help? You know, and then that's even another law. Now, there are known cases where it has been able to be retroacted and getting taken care of, but not always. Not always.
I think it's important just to have that conversation. That's the first step, because again, you never know if you just like talk about it. You can have a friend that's like, oh, I'm dealing with the same thing, especially in the military. And like, again, I had this guy, I did a research paper in college, and this guy, he was in combat. He came back to like civilianhood, and then he just couldn't deal with it. He couldn't adjust, and he went back to combat. So it's just like, you know, some people like, but like having that conversation is the first step. And like I learned with covering the pandemic and being in isolation mode, like some tools, like listen to great music, go on a walk, go outside in nature, like meditation. I love. I've learned a lot from just meditating, but it's those little things, like even having a pet. I got a dog during the pandemic, so that was helpful. But yeah, it's just, we need to have that conversation. So ignoring it is not helping. Like Gracie Gold, she was an Olympian. She was on Today Show or Good America, and she was having suicidal thoughts, but she checked herself in because, again, it's important to prevent from the next step. You know, you want to be safe.
It is. And how many people, you know, do you think were in their living rooms and during the Olympics when she took herself out of it? We're like, oh my God, why would she do that? What's her problem? This, that, and the other. Well, we're a lot of, I guarantee you, there's a lot of people chastising for her doing that instead of doing the Olympics. But again, people don't always understand. They don't always understand that what goes in your mind when you're dealing with a mental illness, mental health illness, you know, and people don't understand that mental health, your brain is an organ just as much as your stomach is an organ or your heart is an organ. And they don't understand that.
Yeah. No, it's the most important. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but like Simone Biles.
This is the computer of your brain. And yet when the computer
Yeah.
goes wrong or the computer goes left, they don't understand that.
But it's the most important because, again, it's your control center. So if you can't control the top notch, then it's going to affect your whole body and everything else. So Simone Biles, all the way, also has ADHD, and Michael Phelps. So they were also like another like great Olympians. But again, like you never know which athlete, gold, Olympic winning athlete could have this problem, So.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my friends, you don't see it on here because it's not popping up, but I had to go to my Facebook to check out some of the other comments. But one of the things that was coming in was my friend Jonathan Mathis, who is another podcaster. By the way, hi Jonathan, appreciate you being a part of this. He goes on to say he's ADHD as well, and mental health. Love this, raise awareness. Yes, I mean you got to talk about it. If we're not talking, that's the problem. See, because back in the day we didn't talk about it. Nobody wanted to talk about it.
I hate that so much. Like brushing stuff under the rug. It doesn't solve anything. It doesn't solve anything. Brushing stuff under the rug. I don't like that. It's not me at all. I'm very assertive. I'm very like, what is wrong? Like, what's wrong?
Yeah, because we want to sweep it under the rug. Because if swept under the rug, we don't have to deal with it.
That's such a boomer thing. No offense. Like parents do that. I don't like it. It's like no.
Right.
No. Let's not do that.
And here's the other side. Here's the other side of it, though. Let's talk about this for a second. If this is the part that really irritates me to no end. Now you're lucky if you're in the military. You have the ability to go to behavioral health. There's all kinds of help there for you. Right now, it's like I said. Now it's a lot more open. It's a lot more talked about. It's a lot more accepted. Things like that. So they have all of these things. And if you're out now and you got VA, and if you're lucky enough and you have enough percentage built up, you can use the mental health facilities at the VA, and that's great. But let's talk about the ones who don't qualify. Or let's talk about the homeless people that are homeless because of mental health. Or let's talk about any other people who are below the poverty line or don't have enough money. Or let's get one better. Let's get one better. What if you have an insurance company that mental health providers aren't tracking or use? Let's talk about that for a minute.
No.
So my thing is this: you got this mental health awareness or all these mental health issues in the United States, but yet it's so overpriced, and or your insurance won't cover it or can't cover it because those specific providers don't take your insurance. Hello, Chant VA. Hello. I'm just trying to say there's a lot of people that don't take it or providers don't. I should say more providers, because I will tell you right now, this is not Chant VA's problem. It's not, because in Hinesville and other places that are around military posts and things like that, they will take Chant VA, which is great. But the minute you go to a place like, let's say Conroe, out in Podunk, Texas, it's just a little north of Houston, about 45 minutes north of Houston, the providers out here don't take Chant VA. And that's the problem I have is the providers that don't take the insurances, or you don't have enough money to afford the insurances. Mental health is just help is not rapidly available. And that is a huge freaking problem. Now I could go to CVS, I go all these places and get these free coronavirus shots, but I can't go get mental health shots. Now let's talk about something else. Lakewood. Let's talk about the shooting that just happened at Lakewood only 2 or 3 days ago.
Or Kansas City, yeah.
That went in there with the rifle and did the shooting, she had mental health issues. So I'm wondering if she was able to get mental health care. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you there are a lot of people in this world that are doing things because of mental health issues. The prison system is full of mental health issues. Full of it. And why aren't they given health care? Why does the United States not make mental health care more accessible?
You're breaking up.
Oh, am I breaking up? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Sometimes are you back?
Yeah. Sometimes I apologize. Sometimes my internet, because out here where I'm at, sometimes my internet goes. I'm just trying to say that mental health is not, or mental health providers or mental health care is not as easily accessible for a large amount of Americans. A large amount. And that to me, it should be one of the big things that our government should make accessible to Americans is mental health care.
I want universal health care. I think we should have that. I'm sorry, but like no one should not be able to afford stuff for their own safe well-being. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And like the whole homeless thing issue, that is a great example of like there are people, like dogs are sometimes treated better than homeless people. I'm like, these are people lying on the street. How are we like just ignoring it? Same with the mass shooting. We get desensitized as producers, being like, we report. So when we report one mass shooting after another, we get desensitized by it. We're not as affected by it. And I'm like, this is wrong. We should not be like that. If there's a mass shooting happening, we should nip it in the butt immediately. But then we have all these ongoing things that keep happening and we're getting desensitized by it. So, but the homeless thing, like that's the same thing in Los Angeles. I'm like, it's all due to mental health. Like, you know, it's just ridiculous. Like I thought of like a promo idea of like a little baby on a street and then a car goes by and it's like a grown ass adult. Like think about like how they ended up there. See what I'm saying?
You know what's interesting to me though? No, you know what? Let me. I used to work in the prison industry. I used to be a corrections officer in the prison industry, and I will tell you right now, as a prisoner, you get free medicine, you get free psychological care because they have psychologists that go to prisons that will meet with you.
There,
they get free Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. They get all these different programs for free that Johnny Taxpayer pays for, which I'm okay, by the way. I don't want it to come out as I'm not okay with paying for. I am okay with that because that will help them, hopefully, when they come out, be more productive citizens. But here's the problem. What happens once they get out or anybody else that's on the street and that healthcare stops? Why are we giving free healthcare and free mental health care to prisoners, but we won't give it to Johnny Schnobuck that's walking down the street that can't afford it? Like, why are we not taking care of them too? Which I understand the universal health care. I see the benefits of universal health care, and I wouldn't be opposed to it if we did go that direction. I wouldn't be opposed to it. The problem is we just aren't doing it now. You know, and we need it now.
Well, it's capitalized.
And it's terrible.
It's capitalized. It's capitalism. But the thing is, I lived in London for 3 months. So I actually had like maybe a minor medical issue. And I actually saw what it was like over there with universal healthcare or free healthcare. And it was interesting because like after I was checked and they said like, cleared me, like, no, you're fine. Because I was like, okay. And then I was like, I don't have to pay. And they're like, nope, you're clear to go. Like it wasn't busy. It was very organized. It wasn't, you know, it was a new experience I've never had before, because again, I like shouldn't have to have a copay. Like it's just ridiculous. But again, I had that experience in Europe, in London, and I saw what it could do. And it was not like a chaos that maybe people are afraid of. It's something that's beneficial. And I feel like there was a story that I saw, like this grandma, and she like couldn't afford her health care. And then she was like, well, I'm about to pass, so it's all okay. Like, you know, maybe like with my insurance money, you can take care of yourself. Like, I was like, that's so sad. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's a conversation to have because again, like homeless people, the homeless rate is going up. Inflation's going up. People's minds, you know, it's just, we got to take care of it. Yeah.
And again, you know, the only thing that I think that we would have to work on or figure out with universal health care is, I know that sometimes with universal health care, you may lose out on some of the specialized care because of it being expensive. I don't know how the specialized care of it would work. And that's something that they would have to figure out, work out, whatever. That's going to be for higher power people. But they need to figure that out. I mean, if Canada has it, let's go look at their model. If Europe has it, let's go look at their model. Let's find out what they're doing for specialized care and how they're accomplishing that. And then let's adapt that and bring that over to here. Because I do know, for example, a neurosurgeon, you know, that's specialized type of care. He's going to want X hundreds of thousands or whatever. How do we figure out getting those guys paid and keep it under a universal policy? I don't have the answer for that, but obviously Europe or Canada, they must be doing something. So we need to look at what they're doing and see how we can translate it here and get it here.
Look, yeah, it's nothing like, because we should be a well-oiled machine. Like I said, like we should be like again, I don't like how things are running these days. We have so many cracks in the foundation that we could definitely fix. I just want it to be, I'm a problem solver, and I just want us to like just fix what's going on here. Like yeah, the 9 to 5 grind, that's a lot. Like I had to do that. But yeah, I just think we're going into 2024 now. There should be like with technology, there should be policy. There's like so many things that we can fix. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, right? There's a lot of problems I have with healthcare with the military was a lot of times you get misdiagnosed. And what I mean by that is so if you look at let's take bipolar. That's really kind of where I'm focusing, or where I want to focus on is if you look at bipolar and you look at borderline personality, if you don't really do the in-depth study in that particular individual, they could get very easily diagnosed with bipolar when in fact they're actually borderline personality because they are very similar in their symptoms. And you really have to do a deeper dive into that person to figure out, oh no, they're not bipolar. They're actually borderline personality. And that's a whole nother type of drug. That's another thing, right? Is I feel like sometimes these mental health providers are not doing a deep enough study. And I will tell you, the government is not going to do that deep of a study because it costs too damn much. And they're not going to put that much of a resource into one particular person. So these doctors will give you and they will give you a halfway decent diagnosis, but it's not as far as it should go, right? It's not. And so that's the problem I have too. And it's not just the military. I'm sure there's other people out there that maybe get misdiagnosed, or they get the wrong medications, or they get too much of a medication. There's a lot of things that really has to be relooked at.
The opioid issue, that's another thing. Yep. People are getting overexposed with the drug because again, it's capitalized. It's capitalism. And it's like it's affecting in more ways than one. And again, mass shootings, like that's something that's a mental thing, and it should not be a common thing for us in America. Like it just shouldn't. So yeah, covered a lot.
And that's a whole nother issue too when we talk about and that's kind of where I'm going at. If we had some kind of a universal mental health care type of thing, right? How many people could you get diagnosed or get treated to where we're not dealing with these issues? Now you can look at gun control and all those other things. I mean, that's
another day.
That's a whole other day. Yeah. But what I'm saying is because the gun's not the issue. The issue is the person that has the gun. And if we're not, and that's what I'm saying, we got to start treating the people that need to be treated or need to be looked at. I mean, you have nurses in these schools, right? For everything and under the sun except for up here. Now you have counselors in there, right? But and I think that's just something that they just now brought on board is these counselors in school, which is a great thing. But they can only but they don't have enough of them. Look, they can't even get enough teachers, much less counselors in these schools. And you think you got a school of like thousands of people, I mean, they should have a department devoted to that kind of stuff, because how much stuff goes into schools that a principal is not necessarily able to deal with. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of these bullyings and stuff like that. These are kids that have mental issues. Maybe they're not able to cope right, and so they feel like instead they can't cope right, they're going to bully or they're going to fight or whatever. But if you have a counselor that can help teach these kids or talk to these kids or reach them at a different level that either A, they can't get at home, or B, you got a single mother who can't devote enough time to her child to get her the right resource. We got to start getting these kids resources at a younger age so we're not dealing with them as adults when they get out and they still got the same damn mental issues, or maybe even worse, or manifested even greater.
But we have to be kind about it. That's the thing. Like, they have to approach it with kindness and coddle them, because again, like, these kids are probably very vulnerable, but like a lot of like, some people ignore it and like, whatever. But I'm like, no, if you don't do it at an early age, it is going to continue down the line and probably even get worse. But like it's with kids especially, you have to be very kind and like, approachable about it. And again, like it shouldn't be something to be ignored. And like that's why I was an actual child counselor or camp counselor back in high school, and there was this incident where this kid like bit us. Like we were the counselors, and he just like started biting us, and I was like, whoa, like what is happening here? So then we had to get like the guy who was in the rec center to come in, and we had to like take him and strap him down, and then like call his parents, and his parents were like, oh, it's no big deal. Like he was biting us. Counselors,
Right.
what are you talking about? This,
Right.
like what, you can't see that's normal. So that was like another thing where I was like, yeah, like I'm not saying parents aren't doing a great job, but you can't just ignore something like that. Like that was super interesting.
So let me ask you this. Talk to me about mental health, since you're in the civilian side of life. Talk to me about mental health in terms of how bosses view mental health in the civilian world, civilian working world. How do they like, if you're having a mental health issue, how do they approach that? Are they good with it? Are they bad with it? What has your experience been with that?
I think like I was being very anxious when it came to like the whole pandemic. I was getting like I was having panic attacks, and I talked to the HR rep about it, and they were like, okay, but like the boss is like, I had a really bad boss, I'm not gonna lie. Like he was very like not seen a lot. He just kind of was there just to sit in the chair. Like he never talked to me. So like I didn't really have that encounter, but I did have great coworkers that we all spoke about like how they were doing with the pandemic and how everyone's doing. Like he did bring it up in the session, but as like an overall boss, he wasn't like really one-on-one with me as a producer. He was more of like, I don't know, different story. But long story short, I had great coworkers where we all came together. And we all came together and we all rallied and was like, how are you doing? How are you like going about this? Because again, like it was a weird situation for us to be in the heart of that whole chaos. Because again, we couldn't turn off the TV. Y'all can, go about your business, but we couldn't. So it was information overload. I was like,
I can see that.
Man, like, yeah, it was just way like interesting. But I think mental health again is like, just as a civilian or whether military or not, we need to change the stigma. So like I'm not afraid to have those conversations where some people are, and then that's where like the problems keep continuing. So like again, I'm a problem solver, so I'm like I'm not afraid to have conversations where people I guess are afraid to.
So let's talk about another issue. Oh no, oh yeah, I know, trust me. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you another question. The election's coming up soon. We're getting ready to go into a new election process. How much have you noticed that like for example, Biden and Trump and a lot of other candidates, they talk about a myriad of things, but the one thing we have not heard from is how they plan to advance mental health care. Why do you think that that's not a topic that should be talked about, but it's not really talked about when we're talking at these campaign rallies or when we hold these speeches? Why are these presidents not doing enough to get that process talked about in the limelight and dealt with?
Because they probably, no offense, but they probably have mental health issues. I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe they're afraid to bring that conversation. I have no idea. Right. I have no idea. I think that should be open conversation. I'm not saying they do. Yeah. I'm not saying they do, but I'm saying like maybe they're just afraid to have that conversation. Or it also is maybe a generational thing. Maybe it's a generational thing where they're not used to having that conversation. So maybe it's something that they're just uncomfortable with, and maybe that's why. But again, like as a future leader, you should definitely have those conversations,
Absolutely.
So yeah,
and that's one of the reasons why. Yeah, and well, that's it. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like we need a younger president, not a guy who's in his 70s and his 60s. We need a guy because you can actually become president at the age of 35 or more. Why are we not getting John F. Kennedy, a younger type of guy, in the office in his, let's say, his 40s or 50s, to where those are the guys that are going to be able to get us in a forward-thinking mode that can help us address a lot of these issues like health care, mental health care, universal health care. I mean, why are we dealing with guys, like you said, that are coming from the 1940s or 1950s, generation, right? And that's another problem I think we're having. We need a younger, more forward-thinking president that can address these issues. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree. Because again, I think 2024 is going to be the future. I see so much potential in 2024. I see the fashion. I see like the technology. I think that we could possibly go into the Jetson era, and that's so exciting for me. But again, like we have to do some stuff in order to achieve that. But like, yeah, like I see like the movies I could create as a producer. I could see like the fashion. But yeah, 2024 could be the new great year to like, because again, I'm like, why aren't we in Jetson era yet? Why don't we have flying cars yet? I don't understand that. So I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds like a quest for Elon Musk and Tesla. Maybe they'll be the ones that come up with the flying cars since they're doing all this other stuff. But hey, listen, we are at our 30-minute time limit. It's been your boy Jay McLovin, Julie Christine from Modern It Girl. Tell me anything you want to plug, stuff that you're doing before we get out of here.
Well, I'm still working on my website. It's about to launch. I'm just trying to get everything together. I'm about to have a web meeting. But yeah, it's going to be very exciting once it does, because it's going to be something different that's never been seen before. So when it comes to the online shopping experience. So get excited.
And it is something to be excited about. I see a lot of great things coming from Julie Christine in the near future. I'm excited to see where she goes. It's your boy Jay McLovin on Elite Sports and Entertainment Network. And I'm curious, Julie, to see where our next conversation goes. I don't think this is all we're ever going to talk about mental health. I would imagine there would be more content down the road coming on that. And again, I do want to put a plug out there. If you are suffering from mental illness, please, and if you feel like if you're going to commit suicide or any of those kinds of things, please call 911. Get some help. Your life has value. Everybody's life has value, and I just want to make sure you understand that. Yeah, do not wait.
You're not weak.
We absolutely do love you because you're a human, and God created us all, and a higher power, if you believe in a higher power. But until next time, it's your boy Jay McLovin, Julie Christine from Modern It Girl, and we will catch you on the flip side.